are super friendly, and it's easy as it can be. We've made it as easy as possible. So if you're eligible for a booster, please go down and do that at your early convenience. These new regulations also apply, we've said before, but we want to reiterate, to all carnival activities. That includes Mardi Gras balls. It also includes all NOLA public school students. Anecdotally, the public school system is receiving very few exemption forms, so we're seeing a good uptick there. Since we announced the child's vaccine mandate in December, we've seen a 72% jump in pediatric vaccines. On December 13th, per LDH data, 33% of kids aged 5 to 17 in Orleans had at least one dose. And as I said just a minute ago, by January 31st, it was up to 56.8%. That's an overall jump of 72%, and we're very glad to see it. That means we're saving lives. That means the kids are safer and healthier than they were 1 month ago. As the schools move in to implement these new policies, we want to work with them. We're not looking to bust anybody. Our goal is to help those that are leaning into this. We want to help people come into compliance. We recognize it's not going to be wave a magic wand on day one, everybody's at 100%. We're looking, as we have throughout this with restaurants, with businesses, we're looking for people to be good actors and to act in good faith and to make best faith efforts. And that's what we certainly hope to continue to see happen. Regarding crime and public safety, obviously that's top of mind for everyone right now. Mayor Cantrell and Chief Ferguson will host a full media avail on crime and public safety tomorrow at the NOPD headquarters at 3 o'clock p.m. That is rescheduled from last week. We regret that we did have to reschedule it, but the mayor and chief will be out to address all those questions tomorrow at 3 o'clock. It's worth noting now, and you've heard us say this many times before, the wins are never as reported as loudly or with much fanfare as the bad news. As an example, last night was another great example of work by NOPD officers. There was an armed carjacking in the 4th District. It was cleared almost immediately with 3 arrests. Officers from the 3rd and the 4th District worked together, made 3 arrests. All 3 were in possession of a firearm, and the NOPD got them and they got those guns off the street. We do need the support and to uplift the work that the NOPD is doing because they are showing results. You're going to hear much more from the mayor and from Chief Ferguson on this tomorrow, so I'll leave it to them on the rest of that. One quick announcement, I believe, and then we can move to questions. Robert E. Lee Boulevard is becoming Allen Toussaint Boulevard officially today. On January 6th, the council approved that street name change from Robert E. Lee Boulevard to Allen Toussaint Boulevard. Technically, that takes effect today on February the 1st. West Robert E. Lee Boulevard's name was not changed by the council action. People should be aware that both street names will be available in address lists in 911, 311, EMS as we're making this transition. Unfortunately, there's not going to be a big ribbon cutting today or a big changeover that you're going to see because the signs that we need, the actual street signs, are in back order. As with many things throughout the pandemic, there's been a supply chain issue, so it's going to be a little while before we're able to have those signs in hand and begin to mount them across the street. But that will be hopefully coming up this spring, and we'll announce a ribbon cutting at the appropriate time once we have the material in hand. In the meantime, we should let residents know that are on that street that what is now Allen Toussaint Boulevard, you still need to get in touch with your corresponding institutions, your vendors, banks, voter registration, all that good stuff. You need to reach out and change your address. We're going to be mailing out and posting on social media some checklists to help you assist in that process. And with that, we can move to questions.
Hey, Beau, lawsuit filed last night.
Yep.
Between the city or the mayor and Dr. Begno. Any changes as a result of the lawsuit?
Yeah, let me speak to that. So as I think most of you guys are pretty well aware, traditionally we do not comment on active or pending litigation. However, in this case, I think it's worth noting that the guidelines that we put in place saved lives, full stop. The vaccine mandate and the mask requirements are going to remain in place throughout Mardi Gras. That's the extent of the comment we're going to have on a lawsuit right now because it is active and ongoing litigation. But we want to make it clear that from our perspective, these guidelines have saved lives and that the vaccine mandate and the mask requirements will remain in place through Mardi Gras. The only way we get through this is if we do it safely.
Okay. Yeah, Beau, yesterday we received correspondence from the 2 at-large council members expressing concern that they were told by Superintendent Sean Ferguson that he would have a plan for them to review as part of the talking points and the plan that the council plans to release on February 3rd.
Sure.
Yesterday, the chief told us that there is no new plan.
Let me be, yeah, sure. Yeah, I got you. Let me jump in on this. So to begin with, the conversation around a plan, a crime plan, show us the plan, where's the plan, has become a little misleading. It implies that NOPD does not have a plan currently in place, right? Sean Ferguson and the men and women under his command wake up every day to put their lives on the line, to fight crime, and to bring criminals to justice. The way that they do that is evolving, and it shifts in regard to the circumstances that are in front of them, right? There has been a crime plan in place, and there will continue to be so. Chief Ferguson's going to speak in more detail on this tomorrow, but I want to be clear that there absolutely is a plan, and there has always been. But as long as I've been associated with the city, which predates this administration and predates Chief Ferguson's command of NOPD, NOPD has never shared tactical deployment information in public for obvious security reasons. So I think that may be where you're seeing some disconnect between what people want to see and what's actually happening. But we want to be very clear that absolutely Chief Ferguson has a plan. It has remained in place. It will continue to evolve, and you'll hear additional details from him tomorrow afternoon.
Some on the council are now calling for Chief Ferguson to step down or to be fired by Mayor Cantrell.
I'm sorry, who has called for that?
Council members.
Which ones?
I spoke with one council member today about it.
Can you be specific, because I'm not aware of that.
I'll tell you after the briefing. Does Chief Ferguson still have the full confidence
Absolutely he
of
does.
his administration?
Absolutely he does. Yes, 100%.
WPSU, and I'll come to you, Todd.
I know that we've reported on a couple of crime stories this week. There was an attempted kidnapping, I believe, on Monday. We have the incident in New Orleans yesterday.
Sure.
We're hearing from some residents that they're concerned there's not enough police presence. I know the head of Pano yesterday talked about the numbers.
Right.
And that with, people on administrative duty with COVID quarantines were less than 1,000 officers on the street on a given day. Is there a response from the city and to those residents who are concerned?
Sure.
that there
I can tell you just at the front of it, I don't have a way to verify Captain Glasser's numbers from his presentation yesterday. Those don't track with the information that I have in terms of the manpower on the street. But regardless of splitting hairs, I will say absolutely it's a front of mind concern for the mayor and for the chief. You're going to hear more from them on that tomorrow, but we are as aware as anyone of the dangers and the anxieties around this, and we're doing everything we can to deploy resources to address the problem.
Fox 8, I'll come to you.
Panel is criticizing NOP recruitment efforts. Is there any plan to try and boost the ranks? And also, how many recruit classes are we budgeted for this year?
On the last part, unfortunately, I don't have that number in front of me. I'm going to have to email you about that later. They mentioned that you were looking for that, but I just couldn't get my hands on the number before we rolled out here. Beyond that, I will say absolutely recruitment is a priority. It has been for quite a while. Although, as I think everyone's very well aware, the policing profession has changed. We are in a very challenging environment when it comes to attracting and retaining recruits for law enforcement. Given pandemic conditions, given the way that the profession has changed and evolved even in just recent times. So there's not a silver bullet answer to that. There's not a quick fix, but I will say absolutely that recruitment is a priority. And I would also encourage you to ask that again tomorrow for Chief Ferguson. He's obviously going to have a lot more detail than I will.
Okay, WG, I'm sorry.
One more just to finish off. Panel also recommends consolidating police districts, shutting down some to free up manpower. Any opinion?
I do not have a comment on that. I would encourage you to put that question to Chief Ferguson tomorrow.
Back to the plan, Beau. Yeah. The chief yesterday stated, there is no new plan. And that, hey, we make adjustments based on whatever. And outside of sharing deployment information, which
Sure.
we all understand, and I
Right.
think the citizens understand as being
Right.
sensitive as well, we're in an unprecedented spike of carjackings, burglaries.
Well, let me back you up for just a second. I don't believe that it's in any way unprecedented. If you look back to the stats from the 90s, we're in a completely different world than we were at that time.
Last year to this year, we're up 200%.
No, I absolutely recognize that
One month in.
I'm not arguing that it's not up. I'm not arguing that it's not up at all.
That's unprecedented.
Okay,
So at that point, that you're asking the police chief, well, what's the plan to deal with this?
right.
And there to be we don't have a new plan, and as you stated, well, there is a plan and it works in this, and it's not working, obviously, Beau.
Right.
And from the citizens' perspective, who are saying, they're shooting people in my neighborhood, they're doing this, they're doing that, it's kind of disheartening that the answer becomes, there's already a plan and it's already working. And so to what do you say to that?
Well, it took me a second to find a question there, but to be clear, absolutely, I don't think there's any question about this. This is front of mind for Mayor Cantrell and for Chief Ferguson. I feel, and as I said a minute ago, I don't want to keep relitigating it. The dialogue back and forth over the plan, is it a new plan, is it an old plan? That's not productive. That's not helpful. What is helpful is making sure that we are giving the NOPD and the men and women who are putting their lives on the line all of our support, and that's what Mayor Cantrell is focused on doing.
So just to be clear, is Mayor Cantrell and the administration place at the NOPD?
Chief Ferguson has Mayor Cantrell's full support.
Let me get the advocate and I'll come back to you, Debbie.
Okay, it was, I think it was the chief himself who said that he was going to be delivering a new plan.
Sure.
We're talking about the, I think it become misleading.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to kind of jump into it, because I think it's gotten muddled. It hasn't been articulated very clearly, and that's why one of the reasons that I want to come out here and be very clear. There is a plan in place. It's what he's working on every day. It's going to evolve. It's going to change, and you're going to hear additional details about it tomorrow. But the idea that there is no plan or that there has never been a plan is not accurate.
Okay, so what plan are you referring to?
The NOPD's daily and ongoing deployment
But
to
if
fight
you
crime.
look at our document,
There's not a name for it. There's not a branded splashy PowerPoint, right? It is Sean Ferguson and his leadership's ongoing efforts to fight crime in this
when
city.
you say there's a plan in place, you're just talking about.
I feel like we're kind of splitting hairs here, Ben. Absolutely, there's a plan in place. Chief Ferguson will discuss it in further detail tomorrow.
Does he plan to bring back the Tiger unit?
I do not have that information. I'll let you ask him tomorrow.
WDSU?
I have a question about COVID.
Okay.
I know you don't want to get too much into the lawsuit, but
Sure.
can you explain for people, and I know you've talked about this before, why these restrictions will stay in place through Mardi Gras?
Absolutely, because we believe they save lives. The reason the restrictions were put in place to begin with, the reason they were brought back is because we believe that masking up and that requiring vaccination or proof of a negative test saves lives. We're moving into a situation that is unprecedented for us. We're moving into hosting Mardi Gras, which is a worldwide event, visitors from all over the country, all over the world. We have a tourist economy. We have frontline workers that are going to be exposed every day, all day, to multiple visitors from across the country. That's why we've been pushing so hard for our people to get vaccinated, and that's why we're requiring people that come to bars, come to restaurants, come to event spaces, that you get vaccinated and you mask up. We absolutely want you to come for Mardi Gras. We want you to have a great time, but the only way we can do this is if we do it safely, and we're relying on everyone to be a good actor in that regard.
Advocate?
Can you tell us why the press conference last week was called?
Yes, Chief Ferguson was ill.
He was ill?
Yes.
Yeah, well, a couple weeks ago, we talked about marching bands and things of that nature having to be,
Right.
whether or not they needed to have vaccines coming out.
Yep.
And this past week, the chiefs, or the captains, I should say,
Right.
said that this added a burden to them, which was pretty hefty. Does the city still stand by requiring them to get that information from participating groups for parades?
Yes, but I understand that conversation is ongoing and is evolving somewhat, because we did hear the concern and the logistical concerns that were expressed by the crew captains. So we're still kind of working through that conversation. I don't have a hard and fast answer on that. I will say that broadly, as we've said before, vaccination and masking is just good policy, and everybody should be doing it. To the degree to which it's going to be required for every individual walking element, I think we're still kind of working through that. Okay, thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.